Another big public debut coming next week. The Wall Street Journal reporting as well. Palantir going to be valued at around $22 billion when it opens next Wednesday. Jim, I'm looking through one of my notebooks here because I've been talking to a number of the investors there some time back. And by the way, they were using the $20 billion number then, too.
Yeah.
Not sure it was really news, but in some ways. But what I did learn from the Journal, actually, which I did not know, was this lack of governance. I mean, if you want good governance, the idea that some of the largest shareholders can actually sell down but still keep, if not increase, their voting power. That's a new one. And then there's the lockup, which that is what I'd been talking to a couple of these large holders about in the past, where it was going to come down in terms of they were going to have this unusual lockup. Remember, on a regular IPO, yeah, you have a lockup, but on a direct listing, which this is, that would be would have been a new feature. How much of your shares could you actually sell? And they're only going to let them sell, the Journal says 20%. They'd sort of been debating where they were going to end up there. So if they're correct, that's a good number to keep an eye on. And then we'll just see how the stock does, because, again, we haven't had that many direct listings. Spotify, Slack are the two ones I can think of. And, you know, it's always an interesting test of the market.
Spotify, in retrospect, was mispriced, even though it went down from where they originally did, because people didn't understand Spotify's direction, which was podcasts. And then you started signing up some very big people for podcasts. You saw the explosion in listening podcasts, and the stock finally doubled. Palantir, when I read that they could sell down and have more votes, I mean, kind of a yunker state over there, I said, who? All right, a sucker's born every minute if you want that. But, David, a lot of people don't even care about corporate governance. They're so used to A and B shares and, you know, companies that just don't, where your vote means nothing, that people don't even think about it. I think you and I think about it because we don't think it's fair. But, yeah.
They don't seem to care. Listen, I mean,
fairness got nothing to do with it.
No, these voting structures are in place, not necessarily where you come down and you accrete up and voting power as your economics decline, but Facebook has obviously got special voting stock. I mean, many of the companies we know very well have that, and it hasn't seemed to impede their ability to attract new investors, or for those that have a structure like with significant voting power that's not equal to economics going into an IPO, it hasn't affected their ability to sell the stock either.
No, look, I think that these are things where people say, okay, it's a company, security, cloud. It's got all the right buzzwords. And then they look at it and they are going to say, look, that's an interesting stock. Price it comes around 10. Of course, the actual dollar price, David, means absolutely nothing except for the Robinhood people.
Right. Well, you know, on that note, do you have any expectations here? Again, it's a direct listing, so it's not like there's a book here that they've got together of everybody who's put in their order. And we're not talking about raising any primary capital for the company. Just to explain to people, it is selling shareholders, whether they be longtime investors, employees who have stock who can sell some of it as well. That's what's making the market, so to speak. And then it's going to be up to whoever steps up and what they want to pay.
Well, it's a very hot area, and they have some truly, let's emphasize, they've got some a hold on the security for a lot of government, which people really like. I think that's steadier business than you get from a CrowdStrike, a Splunk. I mean, Palo Alto's got some. Palo Alto valued very richly, but nowhere near as richly as I think we're going to be talking about this one. It is the right niche, and I think people will sell some of the great cyber security and analytics companies like a Splunk that I had on last week to go buy Palantir. They're not going to look at that governance structure because it bores them. I mean, maybe Larry Fink will say something.